You know that moment where something starts to feel really big and your body tightens and your breath gets shallow and you pull yourself back without even realizing it? Most people leave it right there, or they'll try to work around it with more habits, more discipline, more mindset work, or trying to think their way into being someone who can hold more. But in that moment, it's not your mind deciding, it's your body. I built something for that. It's called the Lagani Embodiment Method. It's a guided, music-led somatic experience where you don't try to become a new version of yourself, you actually step into it. You follow the music, you follow your body, and you start to embody the version of you who already knows how to hold it, move with it, and be in it. I'm hosting a live experience called Expand, Becoming Someone Who Can Hold More, where you get to experience this for yourself. There is no experience needed, just your body and just a willingness to experience something transformational. We are gathering on Monday, May 25th at 8 p.m. live on Zoom, and it's totally free. You can click the link in the show notes to sign up, or you can head on over to nas.io/manifesthealth. That's nas.io/manifesthealth. I can't wait to see you there. Welcome to the Manifest Health Podcast. I am your host, Tamar, and it is such an honor and a privilege and a gift to have you here listening of all the podcasts out there. Thank you so much for choosing to listen to this episode. So I have been doing a little series on the keys to healing, and we've done 2 so far. The first one was about really creating a relationship with God, and the second one was all around the concept of my soul chose this, it chose this life, it chose these challenges. And today we are going to talk about another key of healing, something that has become a really big conversation in the healing and relationship space, and that is polarity. And polarity is one of the keys to healing, not just in relationships, but in your body, in your energy, and in the way you experience life. So at its core, polarity is the dynamic between 2 complementary forces, between structure and flow, between direction and receptivity, between holding and feeling, and between giving and receiving. So in relationships, this often shows up as masculine and feminine energy. And when those energies are flowing in a way that feels aligned, it creates attraction and connection and safety and aliveness. And you can really feel it. And this is something I've personally gone deep into as a trauma-informed somatic practitioner, as a woman who's done a lot of healing in my own body and in my own marriage. Polarity is something I've studied, it's something I've lived, and something I've guided my clients through as well. And I have seen and experienced how powerful it is and it can be. And I also have seen where people get stuck. And the biggest gap I see over and over again is the lack of nervous system awareness inside of these conversations. Because here's the thing, your body is always driving the experience. And when we don't include that, polarity can start to feel confusing or forced or out of reach or like something you're doing wrong. And there are actually certain nervous system survival states that can look like healthy polarity on the outside, but don't feel good or sustainable in the long run. And this is one of the biggest places I see people get stuck because they think I'm doing it right. So why doesn't it feel right? Why aren't the changes happening? Or sometimes it works for a short amount of time and then things kind of go back to the way they were. So people feel stuck. And the answer to why that happens is because there's so much more going on underneath. There is more nuance and more depth, and there's more happening in the body. So that is really what I want to unpack today in this episode. So in this episode, I'm going to walk you through the foundational principles of polarity, what's generally taught and what it's pointing to, how the nervous system and trauma actually interact with polarity, how survival patterns show up inside polarity dynamics, and how attachment patterns influence the way you relate in polarity. And then we're also going to go into what I call divine polarity within you, your own inner masculine and feminine, and what it actually means to embody that within yourself and how that naturally shapes your relationships. So I'm going to walk you through some of the most common ideas around polarity and clarify what's actually true, what gets misunderstood, and where things can get distorted. Some of the things I see being taught in this space, and we'll gently clean those up. And we're also going to go deeper into the Kabbalistic blueprint of masculine and feminine. And that actually just feels so aligned right now because we are in Sfirat HaOmer. And this is literally the time we are moving through the Sfirot, refining different aspects of ourselves. And this lens of polarity gives such a powerful way to understand that because we are going to be explaining it through the lens of the Sfirot. So super appropriate for the time we're in. And then we're going to bring it into real life because this is where it actually matters, right? Like, what does polarity look like when we're postpartum, or when one partner is grieving a loss, or if there's illness or stress, or, sometimes roles naturally need to shift. So what does that look like? How do you stay connected to polarity through real life circumstances? So at the end, I'm also going to guide you through a somatic integration practice so you can actually feel divine polarity inside your own body. So you're not just going to understand it, but you're going to viscerally experience it. So if this is something you've been exploring, or if it's something that's felt confusing to you, or something that you've been wanting to deepen into, this episode is going to bring so much clarity. So let's get into it. I want to start with a little meditation so that you can meet your own inner masculine and inner feminine. So this applies to you whether you are a man or a woman. We all have masculine energy and feminine energy, and we'll get into when we talk about balancing those energies within ourselves, creating polarity within ourselves between those two energies. So in this meditation, we're going to meet those parts of ourselves and kind of feel that a little bit, and then we'll really deepen it at the end of the episode. So let's begin. Find yourself a comfortable place to either sit or lie down, and you can also close your eyes if you feel safe to do that, or just soften your gaze. Allow yourself to just relax. Start taking a few deep breaths. And just take a moment to notice where you are. Noticing the surface beneath you. Noticing the air on your skin. Feeling the weight of your body being held without you having to do anything. And let your breath come in. And let it go. No forcing, just arriving. And you can let yourself take a deeper inhale through the nose. And exhale out of the mouth with a little sound. Really using your voice on that exhale. Again, another inhale in through the nose, nice and slow and gentle. And on your next exhale, using a sigh or a sound, let your shoulders drop just a little bit. And one more inhale. And another exhale, sighing it out. Really arriving here in your body in this moment. And now gently bring one hand to your heart and one hand to your belly. Feel the warmth of your own hands, your own presence. Inside your body, there is a whole inner landscape. A place where your inner masculine and inner feminine both live. On your next inhale, bring your awareness to the back of your body, your spine, your back ribs, the back of your heart, and just notice the qualities that are here. Steadiness, direction, grounding, structure, presence that witnesses without collapsing. This is your inner masculine. Not a man, not an identity. A quality of consciousness inside you that says, I've got you. Feel him just as he is, not as a performance, not as an influencer caricature of alpha, but as the quiet, steady part of you that holds. Take a breath into that. Now shift your awareness to the front of your body, your chest, your belly, your face, your throat, and begin to sense the qualities here. Movement, emotion, intuition, expression, desire, receptivity, softness and fire together. This is your inner feminine. The part of you that feels, that creates, that responds, that knows without needing logic, that moves like water, breath, sound, emotion. Notice what her body wants to do. Maybe a small sway, a deeper breath, a softening of the jaw. And just let her know you're allowed to be here. Your emotions are not too much. Now imagine your back body, your inner masculine, leaning in just a little, like a strong but gentle wall behind you. And from that support, imagine the front of your body, your inner feminine, having more room to feel, open, breathe, express. And take 3 to 4 breaths here, sensing this inner dance. Back body and front body. Holding and feeling. Direction and movement. Structure and flow. You might silently say, I have both. I am both. I don't need to suppress one to express the other. And taking a deep breath into that. And when you're ready, you can start to bring small movement back into your fingers, into your toes, and gently blink your eyes open. Coming back to the present moment, taking a look around the room slowly to just orient yourself back to the space. Continuing to breathe at your own pace. And just notice what's shifted in your body, even if it's subtle. Because what we just touched into is that awareness of your inner masculine and feminine. That's not theoretical, it's very real, and that's alive within you. And that is where this entire conversation begins. So now let's talk about polarity. Because this is something a lot of us have been exposed to through books, Instagram, courses, conversations, and I want to start by saying something very clearly, which is that there is absolutely truth in polarity teachings. They're real and they are important. It's important to know and to experience and embody the pull between masculine and feminine energy and the way direction and receptivity interact, the way structure and flow create movement, and the way oppositional energies can create attraction and aliveness. Many of us have felt this in our relationships, right? Many of us have felt how grounding energy can create safety, or how emotional expression can open connection, or how leadership can feel stabilizing, or how softness can feel inviting. So I'm absolutely not dismissing polarity in any way whatsoever. And I am not here to say that what you've learned is wrong. I am here to deepen it, because what I have seen in my own life, in my marriage, and in my work with my clients is that polarity teachings are often true but incomplete. And when something is incomplete, it can start to feel confusing or pressured, or like you're trying to fit yourself into something that doesn't quite land in your body, or like you're just missing something. So what we're going to do here in this episode is take something that is already true, and we're just rooting it into a deeper, more embodied, more sustainable understanding. It's important also to note that in many relationships, not all, but many, there is a natural orientation where men feel most expressed in their masculine energy and women feel most expressed in their feminine energy. And when that is supported in a healthy way, it can create attraction, polarity, safety, desire, harmony, right? That's very real. It's not something we need to throw out or pretend doesn't exist. But that doesn't mean it's rigid, it doesn't mean it's performative, and it doesn't mean it works without context. Because here's where things start to break down. When we take something that's naturally true and we turn it into a rule, when we take something that is alive and dynamic and we try to force it into a fixed structure, if we are ignoring the nervous system or trauma or life seasons that just happen, right? Life continues to life, or emotional capacity, or the inner world of each person, and then we expect polarity to just work, and that's where people get stuck. So the way I want you to start thinking about polarity is this. It's not a role. It's not something you perform, and it's not something you force. Polarity is a natural movement between masculine and feminine energies within you and between two people. And in a healthy relationship, those energies tend to orient in a way that feels natural to each person, but they also stay flexible, responsive, and alive. Because real life is not static, and your body is not static, and your relationship is not static, and your capacity is not static. So first, let's just kind of touch on the core framework of polarity that's commonly taught. Maybe some of you here have never even heard of this, or maybe some of you know this well, and just to give it a review so we have the context before us, and then we're going to go deep into all of the gaps. So here is a distilled version of mainstream polarity framework in a list, okay? 1, the masculine leads and the feminine responds. Right? So according to this model, masculine provides direction, the feminine provides movement. The masculine initiates and the feminine expands the initiation. And the idea here is that this creates dynamic flow instead of two people trying to lead at once. 2, the masculine is the container and the feminine is the contents. So masculine is the structure, the boundaries, the steadiness, and the feminine is emotion and creativity and intuition. Okay? And number 3, the feminine's openness awakens the masculine's purpose, meaning when the feminine softens, the masculine rises. 4, the masculine stays calm, the feminine expresses emotion. One is the grounding force, one is the expressive force. 5, polarity creates sexual charge. Opposite energies creates attraction, and similar energies can create neutrality or friendship. 6, if polarity weakens, attraction weakens. So you may have heard that if she's in her masculine, he collapses, or if he's in his feminine, she can't trust him. 7, the feminine must surrender to be feminine. So softness and trust and receptivity are the feminine essence. 8. The masculine must take full responsibility for the relationship. This is where interpretations become extreme, okay? In the regular teachings of polarity, the masculine holds the emotional tone, the masculine steers direction, and masculine leadership allows feminine ease. A lot of what I see on Instagram, the Instagram version, is that a man should never share his struggles, or a man must hold everything alone. 9. Feminine emotion is sacred. Better polarity coaching actually emphasizes feminine expression is life force, and masculine presence creates safety for that expression. 10. Polarity can be intentionally cultivated through embodiment practices, communication, boundaries, and sexual dynamics. So that's a very condensed list of what is taught about polarity. And it's all very important and so real. However, it is incomplete and is lacking so much nuance, and it lacks the spiritual root system and the nervous system understanding needed to actually apply it safely. And before we expand it, before we add Torah, Kabbalah, somatics, trauma awareness, or the soul, we need to honor why people find this framework so helpful, right? Because polarity teachings meet a very, very real need, and they are very important. And like I said, it's one of the keys of healing for sure. So the benefits that people experience from polarity teachings is that polarity gives language to something couples already feel. Most couples naturally experience one partner grounding and one expressing, or one creating direction and one responding, one giving and one receiving. So polarity just names that dance. It also reduces power struggles. When both partners try to lead, there's usually conflict. And if no one is leading, there's stagnation. Polarity helps couples organize energy instead of battling for control. It also helps women soften out of survival mode. There are so many women who are overfunctioning, managing everything, are hyper independent, and disconnected from their sensations and intuition. So polarity invites a return to softness when it is safe. And it also helps men step into grounded leadership. Men rarely receive emotional education, somatic tools, permission for softness, and healthy models of leadership. And polarity gives them a direction to step into. It also increases erotic charge. Oppositional energies, when both partners are regulated, can absolutely create chemistry and attraction. And it also helps couples understand each other's needs, right? The feminine energy needs emotional attunement and presence and spaciousness to feel, while the masculine needs clarity and respect and trust and room to act. And it gives structure to relationships that feel chaotic. Even if oversimplified, the structure itself feels stabilizing. Okay, so now we deepen it. Now we're going to get into the nervous system and trauma and attachment and how this affects polarity in a very, very real and very big way. So everything we've talked about, masculine and feminine energy, polarity, attraction, connection, it's not happening in theory. It's happening through your nervous system, through your body, and through your lived experience in real time. Polarity is real, and at the same time, your ability to actually live it depends on your nervous system, because your body needs to feel safe enough to soften, open, receive, express, or lead, hold, feel, or connect. So when your system has that capacity, polarity flows much more naturally. And when your system is overwhelmed, activated, or shut down, polarity can feel very forced or confusing or totally out of reach or even unsafe on the subconscious level or even on the conscious level for many people. And not because anything is wrong, but it's because your body is prioritizing protection. And it can go both ways. This does not mean you have to fully heal your nervous system before polarity works. Okay? Sometimes stepping into feminine energy helps a woman reconnect to her body. And experiencing grounded masculine leadership helps her nervous system soften. And practicing polarity can create safety and healing in the relationship itself. And sometimes nervous system work is what allows polarity to finally feel accessible and real. And what I have seen is that if the nervous system work doesn't come first, polarity can still work, but eventually you will hit a wall, because you can only find safety up until the sealing of your nervous system. So it's not heal first, then polarity. And it's not just do polarity and ignore everything else or do the stuff after. It's these two things support each other. And when they're both included, that's when it becomes sustainable and deep and powerful. Where a lot of people get stuck is when polarity is there, but the nervous system piece isn't being tended to. And what can happen in those moments is that different survival responses actually start to look like polarity, but they don't feel good in the long run. Not because the polarity itself is wrong, but because the body is still in protection mode. So let's just look at how this can play out. So when it comes to fight-flight energy, sometimes what looks like strong, directive, masculine energy can actually be your nervous system in fight or flight. When you're experiencing overfunctioning or controlling or pushing forward from urgency or leading because it doesn't feel safe to not be in control, on the surface it can look like leadership, but internally it may feel tense, pressured, and reactive. And over time, that doesn't create the kind of grounded safety that polarity thrives in. And then there's also the fawn nervous system response. Sometimes what looks like feminine softness or surrender can actually be people-pleasing, over-accommodating, suppressing truth to avoid conflict, or saying yes when the body means no. So on the outside, it can look like receptivity, but inside, it might feel like disconnection or resentment or self-abandonment. And this can be very subconscious. We could not be aware of it. We could really think we're like in our feminine, but eventually you hit the wall where you figure out something's off. And so that doesn't lead to true feminine expression. It ends up leading to depletion. And then there is the freeze response. So sometimes stillness can look like calmness and groundedness and emotional stability, but internally it may actually feel like numbness and shutdown or disconnection, or I don't know what I'm feeling, right? And that's a very different experience than grounded presence. And when it comes to emotional activation, which is part of the feminine energy, sometimes emotional expression can look like openness and feminine flow and vulnerability. But when the system is overwhelmed, it can feel like flooding or spiraling or intensity without grounding or losing a sense of center. And again, it's not wrong. It just means the body needs more support and containment. So all of these responses are intelligent. They're your body doing its job. They are your system trying to stay safe and orienting to what it finds familiar. But when they're not recognized, they can make polarity feel unstable or confusing or inconsistent or hard to sustain, because underneath the dynamic, the body is still in protection. So when the nervous system is supported, even gradually, breath begins to move and the body feels more connected and emotions can be felt without overwhelming. There's more capacity to stay present, and there's more choice in how you respond. And from that place, feminine softness can feel genuine, and masculine leadership can feel grounded, and emotional expression can feel connecting, and boundaries feel clear without being harsh, and intimacy can feel safe and alive. And there is another layer that's very helpful to understand, which is attachment patterns, okay? So for those of you who maybe have never heard of attachment is the way we show up in relationships. And there are 4 different types of attachment. There is secure attachment, which is like everything's great and you feel secure and safe. There is anxious attachment, when you are anxiously trying to connect with your partner or whoever you're in a relationship with. There's avoidant attachment, where you're avoiding and kind of running away from things. And then there's anxious avoidant, which is both. You try really hard to pull them close, and then you get them close, and then you push them away. So there's a lot more nuance to this, and this is something that I teach in my courses. But just to give you just a very basic explanation of what it is. So sometimes when we are in these attachment patterns, avoiding closeness can feel like independence, and needing reassurance can feel like emotional intensity. And going back and forth between both can feel confusing. But underneath, these are often attachment patterns. So these are ways your system learned how to stay safe in connection and how to navigate closeness and distance. And again, nothing is wrong here. But when we understand this, we stop trying to fix polarity and we start supporting the deeper patterns underneath it. So when we bring all of this together, the picture becomes much clearer. Polarity is real. Masculine and feminine dynamics are real, and they can be deeply beautiful and powerful in relationships. And for that to feel safe, connected, consistent, and alive over time, your nervous system and emotional world need to be included in the process. So this can be on the simple side. We don't need to overcomplicate this. You can simply just begin to notice, when do I feel open and connected? When do I feel shut down or overwhelmed? When does polarity feel natural? And when does it feel forced? And instead of judging those moments, you get curious because your body is always giving you information. So as we bring in this layer, not as something separate from polarity, but as something that lives right alongside it, we start to understand something really important, which is that polarity isn't something you force into your relationship. It's something that emerges when your internal system has the capacity to support it. And that brings us into the next piece, because all of this, your nervous system, your patterns, your capacity, it lives inside you first, which means divine polarity actually does not start in your relationship. It starts within you. So let's go there. So now we're moving into the core of this episode. Everything we've explored so far has been setting the stage for this, okay? Divine polarity begins within you before it ever exists between you and another person, okay? Take a breath with that. What this means very simply is you cannot consistently experience softness or surrender or receptivity or emotional expression if your inner masculine doesn't feel stable, clear, and trustworthy. And at the same time, you cannot fully embody leadership, direction, grounded presence, or protection if your inner feminine feels suppressed, unsafe, or disconnected. So instead of the focus being, how do I get him to step more into his masculine, or how do I get her to soften more into her feminine, the focus gently shifts inward to questions like, what is happening within me? How is my inner masculine showing up right now? How is my inner feminine showing up right now? Do I feel supported inside myself? Do I feel safe to feel? Is there connection between these parts of me, or is there disconnection? And as you begin to look there, something becomes very clear. The dynamic you experience in relationship is deeply connected to the dynamic that exists within you. And it's very important to bring in the codependence piece here, right? Because codependence essentially, and when I'm saying codependence, I mean unhealthy codependence. It means you are dependent on something else for your happiness or for your regulation, right? So like if you are completely dependent on your spouse being in their masculine, right? I'm speaking as a woman. I want to be in my feminine, right? So if my being in my feminine is completely only dependent on my husband to be in his full masculine, then my polarity within myself is not right, because I have to first balance it within me. So when life's and maybe he'll go through something one time, like a loss that he's grieving, or God forbid gets sick or something, where I have to then take up the reins and I can't depend on him in the ways I need to just be my soft feminine self. I have to strengthen my own masculine to provide that safety for my feminine to flow. So there is an inner marriage that happens, okay? So this is what I mean by this. This is the relationship between your structure and your flow, your direction and your feeling, your holding and your expression. So when these two aspects of you, yourself, are in relationship, when they're listening to each other, supporting each other, responding to each other, that is where divine polarity begins. Not as something you perform and not as something you're trying to get right, but it's something that naturally starts to move through you. And from that place, your relationship shifts. Not because you're trying to change your partner, but because the energy you're bringing into the relationship is different. It's more grounded. It's more open. It's more responsive. It's more real. This is the foundation. And from here, we can go even deeper into what this actually looks like inside your body and your life. So let's slow this down and bring it into something you can actually feel and recognize in yourself. Because when we talk about masculine and feminine energy, we're not talking about concepts. We're talking about lived experiences inside your body. We're talking about how you move through life, how you respond to pressure, how you relate to yourself, and how you show up in relationship. Okay? So your inner masculine, it's the part of you that creates structure, clarity, boundaries, direction, stability. It's your ability to hold yourself, to make decisions, to protect what matters, and take aligned action and stay grounded when things feel intense. It's the part of you that says, I've got this. I can handle what's here. I can move forward. I can take care of what needs to be taken care of. When your inner masculine is not fully supported, it can feel like second guessing yourself or feeling scattered or overwhelmed or difficulty setting or holding boundaries, or maybe relying on others to feel steady or not following through with stuff or feeling unsure of direction. Or it could swing the other way and feel like over-functioning or needing to control everything or pushing yourself without rest or tightening up when things feel uncertain or disconnecting from emotion to stay on track, right? Stay focused on whatever you're doing. And when your inner masculine is grounded and integrated, that's when you feel steadiness and clarity and trust in yourself and the ability to follow through, a sense of internal support, being able to lead without force, and being able to hold intensity without shutting down, right? It's quiet, it's steady, it doesn't need to prove itself. And you can feel it in your body as your spine, your back body, that subtle sense of being supported from within. So think about how all those things feel. Imagine you put all of that completely on your partner and you didn't have any of that. First of all, you would exhaust them. We have to still, even if we're women and meant to be more in our feminine, we still have to get our inner masculine balanced. Everything is made up of these two energies, which we'll get deeper into soon when we get into the Kabbalah of it all. And there has to be a balance. We have to create a healthy masculine energy within ourselves in order for our feminine to flow. That can't be dependent on somebody else. It has to start with us. Okay? So your inner feminine is the part of you that brings feeling and intuition, expression, creativity, sensuality, and connection. And it's your ability to feel what's real and sense what's true and express what's moving through you and receive support and love and connection and stay connected to your body and your experience. Okay, it's the part of you that says, I feel this matters, I'm drawn to this is what I need, this is what I desire. And when your inner feminine is not fully supported, it can feel like disconnecting from your emotions or numbing out or feeling shut down or rigid. It can feel like losing touch with your intuition or staying in situations that don't feel right or not allowing yourself to receive. Or it could also feel like emotional overwhelm, feeling flooded by what you feel, losing a sense of center and reacting instead of responding or not feeling held internally. And when your inner feminine is open and integrated, it feels like aliveness in your body and connection to your emotions, clarity in your intuition, ease in your expression, the ability to soften without losing yourself, and the ability to receive without collapsing. And there's a sense of movement, warmth, presence, and responsiveness. It's both gentle and powerful at the same time. So here's where it all comes together. These two parts of you are not separate systems. They are meant to be in relationship with each other. If your inner masculine doesn't feel steady or supportive, it's very hard for your feminine to relax, open, or trust. And if your inner feminine is disconnected or shut down, your masculine loses access to deeper clarity and direction. They rely on each other. Your masculine helps you create structure and make decisions and move forward. And your feminine helps you feel what's true and sense what's aligned and stay connected to yourself. So you could feel this as your masculine saying, I've got us, and your feminine responding, here's what's true. And when they're not connected, you can feel pulled in different directions. Maybe you'll overcompensate in one area or feel like something's just missing. But when they start to work together, there is that sense of alignment and clarity and ease and internal support. So when we really balance this is when things really begin to change. Instead of trying to be more masculine or more feminine, you start to notice where you feel supported inside and where you don't, where you feel connected and where you feel disconnected. And from there, something naturally begins to come back online through awareness and support, right? Not with force. And as that internal relationship strengthens, your external relationships begin to shift as well, right? So as your inner world becomes more supported, as your inner masculine and feminine begin to feel more connected, then you'll notice how things start to shift and how you show up in your relationship, right? Because polarity isn't something you do to your partner. It's something that begins with your own state, with how you feel inside yourself, with how supported you are internally, and with how connected you are to your own body, your own truth, your own capacity. When your inner masculine feels more grounded, there's more steadiness in you. There's more clarity, more trust in your decisions, more ability to hold yourself in moments of intensity. And you're able to set boundaries without shutting down and stay present without becoming rigid and allow support without losing yourself. And when your inner feminine feels more open, there's more aliveness in your body and more connection to your emotions, more access to your intuition and more ease in expression. And you're able to soften into intimacy and receive love more fully and express desire more honestly and stay connected to what you feel without becoming overwhelmed. And as these two begin to work together inside you, there is a different quality to your presence. You might notice that you feel more grounded and open at the same time, and more clear and more connected and more steady and more responsive. There's less efforting and more natural movement. So from that place, your relationship starts to respond, not because you're trying to make something happen. It's because the energy you're bringing into the dynamic has shifted. And sometimes that'll look like your partner naturally stepping into more direction or leadership, right? I've experienced this. I've seen so many people experience it. It feels magical. It's the coolest thing. It could also look like you feeling more available to soften or receive, and moments of polarity just becoming more easeful and more organic. And it also can look like clearer communication and more honesty and more responsiveness between you. It doesn't have to be dramatic to be meaningful. And this is where we hold both truths at the same time. For many couples, there's a natural dynamic where one partner leans more into masculine energy and the other into feminine energy. And that can feel really good and really aligned and really connecting. And at the same time, that dynamic flows best when both people feel supported within themselves. It's only once it's balanced from within that you're able to show up in that stronger masculine or feminine energy for your partner. So instead of trying to push your partner into a role or force yourself into a certain way of being or get polarity right, right? You come back to your state, your body, your internal support, your capacity in the moment. And from there, polarity becomes less about effort and more about something that naturally emerges and evolves between you. This is what I mean by divine polarity. It's not something rigid and it's not performative. It's alive, it's responsive, and it moves within you. It's with the reality of your relationship. Have you ever felt like you're growing but without a clear rhythm? Like you're doing the inner work but you're not sure what this season is actually asking of you? Because growth is not random. According to the Hebrew calendar, every month carries a specific spiritual energy, a refinement, a body part, an emotional gateway, an invitation. And when you align with that rhythm, you stop forcing your growth and you start moving with it. That's why I created the expanded spring edition of the Kabbalah Moon Journal. This is not just a journal, it's a guided monthly framework that teaches you how to live in sync with sacred time, and more importantly, how to default to your body's wisdom instead of your anxiety, conditioning, or just the noise around you. Each month gives you the focus, the structure, the embodied practices that help you integrate it. If you loved the winter edition, the spring edition goes so much deeper. Expanded teachings, somatic embodiment exercises, and more guidance to help you actually live what you're learning. If you are ready to grow intentionally instead of reactively, the expanded spring edition of the Kabbalah Moon Journal is available now on Amazon. So now that you have a felt sense of what's happening internally and how that begins to shape what happens between you and your partner, we can start to look at some of the common ideas around polarity and gently sort through what's actually true, what gets misunderstood, and what starts to create pressure or confusion. So I want to walk you through that, these different polarity myths and some reframes, okay? So a lot of these ideas have shaped how people think about relationships and how they relate to themselves and how they try to show up with a partner. And for many people, they've been helpful. They've given language, they've created awareness, they've opened new ways of relating. And at the same time, sometimes these ideas get simplified or applied without context. And that's where things can start to feel confusing, pressured, or off in the body. So what we're going to do here is gently walk through some of the most common ideas around polarity and bring in a little more nuance, a little more reality, and a little more embodiment, okay? Okay, so myth 1 is men are masculine, women are feminine. I'm not saying this is not true. This is true. In an ideal relationship, a man should most of the time be the masculine pole and the woman should be the feminine pole. And men naturally feel more expressed and natural in their masculine energy, and the same for women. Right? That's very natural and very aligned. Where this can become limiting is when it's held as something rigid or fixed instead of something that's alive and responsive. Because in real life, women do lead and initiate and protect and make decisions. It's not like we leave all of that up to the male partner in our relationship and we don't do any of that at all. You know, especially if you're a mother, think of being a mother, like we're lionesses. We go to bat protecting our kids all the time. If you run a business, you have to wake up your masculine energy to run your business, to hold that container, right? And in real life also, men do feel and receive and need support and open emotionally. We see this every day. If a man acts that way, that doesn't mean he's just in his feminine. It means there's a balance. So in deeper teachings like Kabbalah, both masculine and feminine qualities exist within every person, as we discussed and broke down before. Okay, so the reframe here is there's absolutely a natural masculine feminine orientation in a relationship, and at the same time, both partners have access to a full range of these energies, and that flexibility is what makes a relationship resilient and alive. Myth 2, the man must always lead. For many couples, leadership from the masculine can feel grounding, clear, and supportive. And that dynamic is really beautiful when it's coming from presence and capacity, right? Key word, when it's coming from presence and capacity. Where this becomes challenging is when leadership is expected to be constant, regardless of what's actually happening in each person's internal state. Because in real life, sometimes one partner is more resourced. Sometimes the other has more clarity. Sometimes leadership naturally shifts moment to moment. You know, I think about the time when my husband lost his best friend. He passed away and he was crushed and devastated and grieving very, very deeply. For anyone, let alone me, to expect him to be a strong, healthy, masculine leadership role during that time is insane. the man needed to grieve. The man needed to feel his emotions. That is a time where life lifes and where this flexibility comes into place, right? Right? So the reframe here is healthy relationships often have a natural flow of leadership. And for many couples, there is a general orientation that feels good. And within that, there's also flexibility based on capacity, presence, and what's needed in the moment. Myth number 3, a man should never share his struggles with his partner. Oh, I want to throw up when I hear this. Just thinking of my own experience of the beauty and depth and connection and how polarity strengthened tremendously by me holding space for my husband in his healing and being the love of his life, feminine and masculine support in that moment for him, right? There's a teaching that masculine energy holds, stabilizes, and provides direction. It's very true, very grounding. Where this becomes limiting is when it turns into emotional isolation, okay? Men are not robots. They still have feelings, and they still, just like any other human body, the way God created us, need to feel their emotions in a certain way to release them. While it doesn't look the same as it looks for women, it's still a necessity. And also, connection requires being known. In a healthy relationship, there is space for strength, and there is also space for openness, not as collapse, but as realness. The idea of, in a loving, long-term relationship, of a man never expressing his feelings and always holding things in, you are not letting your wife know you. You are limiting your intimacy to such a surface level. So this idea that he should never share his struggles with his partner is insane. Straight up, okay? So the reframe here is masculine presence can absolutely be grounding and steady. It is, and it can also include the ability to be seen, to share honestly, and to stay connected without losing that groundedness, right? It's not weak to be sensitive or to feel emotions. It's not only feminine to feel emotions. It's also just very human and the way our bodies function. Myth number 4, if a woman is emotional, she's in her feminine. Feminine energy is deeply connected to feeling and expression and emotional depth. That is real. And at the same time, not all emotional expression feels the same in the body. Some emotion feels connected, expressed, alive, and sometimes it feels overwhelming and flooding and hard to hold. So the reframe is that feminine emotionality can be incredibly powerful and connective, and part of that power is having enough internal support for those emotions to move and be expressed in a way that feels grounding, not destabilizing. When I think about this, I think about the earlier days, years of my healing journey before I had like the real emotional intelligence and that balance of polarity within to express my emotions in a healthy way. And me going crazy, just barfing emotions all over the place in a really unhealthy, uncontained way, expecting my husband to be the container for that, is not healthy because that's too much for them. Yes, they are supposed to be the container to hold all of your emotions, and we're allowed to be wild and erratic, and that's very feminine. And there's a difference between a woman, like an expressed woman in her feminine, and a woman expressing emotions in a toxic way. There is a toxic way, and I'm speaking from experience. There was a time I know I was toxic. So when I was expressing in that way, that will shut a man down. That's not healthy for them. Being in their healthy masculine doesn't mean that they have to be the container for toxicity. Absolutely not. So reframe here. Feminine emotionality can be incredibly powerful and connective, and part of that power is having enough internal support for those emotions to move and be expressed in a way that feels grounding and not destabilizing. We are still responsible to create the balance within ourselves and express in a healthy way. It can still be wild because that is part of being feminine. We can be wild and all over the place, but there's, like I said, healthy versus toxic, okay? Myth number 5, a woman should never be in her masculine. Ha! Most women move in and out of structure, decision-making, leadership, and protection every single damn day. That's part of life. I know you know it, ladies. And for many women, having access to that energy is essential. Where this can feel off is when that energy is being driven by pressure or stress or over responsibility rather than choice, okay? So the reframe here is a woman can absolutely access masculine energy in a healthy and grounded way. And when that energy is supported, not overextended, it actually creates more space for her feminine to open naturally. Myth number 6, polarity creates attraction. Polarity absolutely enhances attraction. That dynamic of difference, direction and response, structure and flow, can feel very alive. And at the same time, attraction is also deeply connected to safety and trust, emotional connection, and feeling seen and met. Okay, so the reframe here is that polarity can deepen attraction, and it tends to flourish most when there is already a foundation of safety, connection, and emotional presence underneath it. So this is a big one where I've seen with clients where that polarity kind of hits the wall because they're like, I'm doing all the polarity things and he's taking more control and he's more in his masculine and I'm more in my feminine. And yet it's not working because they still haven't repaired those wounds underneath that caused her to not feel like she can trust him fully and that she doesn't feel fully seen by him yet. Those wounds need to be repaired for that to actually work. Myth number 7, if a woman is overwhelmed, she just needs to soften more. Softness and receptivity are beautiful expressions of feminine energy, okay? And they rely on a sense of support. Because when someone is overwhelmed and carrying a lot and holding everything together, their system is naturally going to move towards structure and control. So the reframe here is softness becomes accessible when there is support, safety, and space. It's not something to force. It's something that opens when the system feels held. Myth number 8, feminine equals soft, calm, and receptive. Softness is one expression of feminine energy, and it's only one part. Feminine energy also includes intensity, creativity, intuition, expression, cycles, power, and movement. So the reframe here is feminine energy is multidimensional. It can be soft and strong, still and expressive, grounded and expansive, often all at once. Myth number 9, men give, women receive. That's the whole story. Giving and receiving is a powerful dynamic in polarity, and in real relationships, it's not one directional, okay? Both partners give, both partners receive, both partners support, both partners open, both lead in certain moments, and both respond in others, right? So the reframe here is giving and receiving are constantly moving between partners, and that movement, that exchange, is what helps the relationship stay alive and connected. Myth number 10, polarity is something you perform. This is where things can start to feel the most forced, is when polarity becomes something to get right and something to act out and something to follow as a script. That's when it really loses all its aliveness. So the reframe here is that polarity is not something you force or perform. It's something that naturally emerges when you feel connected to yourself, when you feel supported internally, and when you're responding to what's actually real in the moment. So as you can feel, we're not throwing anything out. We're just bringing more depth, more context, and more reality into how these ideas are understood and lived. And when you bring that depth in, polarity stops feeling like something you have to figure out and starts to feel like something you can actually experience. And from here, we can go even deeper into the spiritual blueprint that underlies all of this, because polarity is not just relational, it's woven into the structure of creation itself. So let's go there. This is, in my opinion, the really fun stuff. So now I'm going to take you deeper into an ancient map that has been holding these truths for thousands of years. a map that helps us understand these dynamics not just as relationship concepts, but as something woven into the structure of creation itself. So take a breath and let your body soften as we enter this. So Kabbalah teaches that all of existence flows through 10 channels of divine energy called the Sefirot. These are not abstract ideas. They are a way of describing how energy moves, how creation unfolds, and how different qualities relate to one another, both in the world and within us. So very simply, Chachma is spark, inspiration. It's a flash of insight, okay? It's often described as masculine. And Bina, which is feminine, it's development and expansion and understanding. It's the space that receives and then builds. So Chachma is like the seed, and Bina receives that seed and develops it into something formed, something real. So this dynamic, spark and expansion, initiation and development, is one of the foundational expressions of masculine and feminine energy. And Kabbalah teaches that both of these exist within every person. Okay? So those are the first two of the 10 Sefirot that I'm going to discuss here. And now we're going to go into Chesed and Gevura. So Chesed is giving and expansion and generosity, and that's masculine leaning, okay? And then Gevura, which is feminine, is boundary, containment, and discernment. Gevura is the power of structure, of knowing when to say yes and when to say no. It's not the absence of softness. It's what allows energy to be held in a way that's sustainable. So it's interesting when hearing about Gevura, being about boundaries, discernment, and contraction and strength, the energy of that kind of feels masculine, right? Because it's so structured and firm and cutting. It doesn't sound like what we are generally taught is feminine energy. So I wanted to clarify this because in Kabbalistic polarity, feminine does not mean soft. It means form. Masculine is flow and expansion and giving, and feminine is receiving, shaping, and containing. So the real question is, what gives energy its shape? It's not expansion, it's boundary, and that's Gevura. So you can think of it like this. Chesed, which is the masculine, is like give everything, overflow, more. And then Gevura, which is feminine, is hold, filter, contain, only what's true comes in. So without Gevura, Chesed becomes chaos, and without boundaries, love becomes enmeshment. So Gevura is not opposing love. It makes love safe enough to exist. And the deeper feminine truth here is that the feminine is not just open. She is a womb that decides what enters. Did you know that? The egg actually selects the specific sperm that it allows to come in. It's not just who gets there first. The egg will reject the sperm that she doesn't want, and she chooses the one. So that's the feminine. It's the womb that decides what enters. It's the body that contracts and releases. And it's the field that filters energy constantly. So that filtering capacity, that is Gevura. So yes, it feels strong and firm and even cutting, but that's because true feminine power is not passive, it's selective. So people can get confused around this because in modern language, boundaries are masculine and softness is feminine. But in deeper energetic truth, unbounded openness is actually the dysregulated feminine. It's a lack of containment. And clean, grounded, no energy is deeply feminine because it protects the vessel. So somatically, you can feel this in your body the moment you say a true no, or the moment your body tightens just enough to protect something sacred, or that moment you pull your energy back into yourself. That contraction is not shutting down. It's intelligent containment, and that is Gevura. So Gevura is not masculine hardness. It is feminine precision. It's feminine boundaries, feminine self-respect, and feminine capacity to hold only what is aligned. So when chesed and gevura come into balance, we get tiferet, which is harmony and integration and beauty. So this balance between expansion and boundary is also at the heart of a healthy relationship. Okay? So the next two are netzach and hod. So these sfirot show how energy actually moves into action. Netzach is that forward movement, that persistence, that drive that says I'm moving forward, right? And that's the masculine. And hod is receptivity and humility, the ability to take in and integrate. And hod says I'm open to what's here, right? Both are necessary, both are active. So receiving here isn't passive, it's a form of participation and of responsiveness. The next one is yesod, which is foundation. So yesod is where everything comes together. It channels all of these energies into connection, relationship, communication, intimacy, sexual energy, emotional bonding. You can think of yesod as the bridge, the place where energy becomes relational. And this is where we start to recognize something familiar. Connection isn't created through fixed roles. It's created through movement, through giving and receiving, through offering and responding, through holding and opening. And when that movement is present, connection flows. And then there is malchut, which is the sphera associated with embodiment and expression and manifestation, presence and sovereignty. And Malchut receives all the energy from above and brings it into lived reality. And it often is associated with the Shekhinah, the divine feminine presence of God within the world. And so something important to notice here is Malchut receives, and at the same time, it becomes the source of expression for everything that comes after it. So even within this system, energy is always relational and contextual. So one of the most helpful ways to understand this is these energies are not fixed roles. They are ways that energy relates, responds, and moves. So in real life, that can look like moments of leading, moments of responding, moments of holding, moments of expressing, moments of giving, and moments of receiving. And in a healthy system, that movement stays alive. So when we translate this into relationship, we start to see something much more dynamic than rules. We see direction and response, structure and flow, expression and containment, initiative and openness. So for many couples, there's a natural orientation to how these energies tend to flow, right? And that can feel really aligned and really supportive. And within that, there is still movement. There's still responsiveness. There's still adjustments based on what's happening in the moment. So what this looks like practically, right? Instead of thinking in terms of what role should I be in, right? You can start to feel into what is needed right now. What energy is present? What would create more connection here, right? Sometimes that's grounding, sometimes that's direction, sometimes that's clarity, and other times it's openness or expression or receptivity. And as you begin to relate this way, your relationship starts to feel less like something you're managing and more like something that's alive and responsive. So at its core, this isn't about rigid definitions. It's about relationship, okay? Relationship between different energies and different qualities and different expressions of being. And when those are able to meet and respond and move together, something very natural begins to happen. You can feel more connection, more aliveness, more safety, more attraction, and more flow. And not because you're trying to create it, but because you're allowing the natural movement of these energies to unfold. So from here, we can start to bring this even more fully into real life. Because these dynamics don't just exist in theory, they show up differently depending on the season you're in, what your body is holding, what your relationship is moving through. So I want to take you through how this actually looks in real life, right? How this actually plays out. So with this deeper map of the sphero and the nervous system and the way these energies move within us, let's bring this into your actual lived relationships, because polarity does not look the same in every season, right? shifts when you're postpartum. It shifts when one of you is grieving. It shifts when you're exhausted. It shifts when you feel supported and resourced. So instead of trying to fit your relationship into one fixed dynamic, we start to recognize that polarity has seasons. And when you understand that, you stop forcing something that doesn't match your reality and you start working with what's actually unfolding between you, right? Polarity is not static. It doesn't show up the same way every day or in every phase of your relationship. It moves just like the nervous system moves, just like energy moves, just like life itself moves. Okay, so let's talk about the postpartum season or the tender season, right? There are seasons where the body is more open, more sensitive, and more vulnerable, right? So maybe that can look like pregnancy loss or postpartum or illness or physical depletion or deep emotional tenderness, okay? In these moments, her body may feel more raw and exposed, her system may be more easily overwhelmed, or there's less capacity for pushing or holding everything. And naturally, the dynamic often shifts. The partner who has more stability or capacity in that moment may take on more structure, direction, steadiness, and practical support. Not as a rigid role, but as a response to what's actually needed in this current season, right? And her power in that season may look like allowing support, expressing limits, receiving, and staying connected to what her body needs, right? This is a clear example of how polarity responds to capacity, not just roles. And in that example I gave, that is a more like gendered polarity situation, right? It is the woman being more in her feminine and the man stepping into his masculine. That's what we expect. But what happens if the husband or the male partner is going through illness or physical depletion? What if he just had surgery or is going through some sort of deep emotional tenderness because somebody close to him passed away? So that's when he's feeling more raw and exposed. His system is more easily overwhelmed because he's a human. He is not a robot. He has less capacity for pushing or holding everything. So naturally, again, the dynamic shifts. Then it is on the woman to be the one to take on more structure and direction and steadiness and practical support in those moments. That is a very real life thing, and that's okay, and we can honor that, okay? So another season of crisis or grief or emotional strain, right? There's also seasons where one partner is moving through something difficult, grief, burnout, anxiety, or emotional overwhelm. So again, the dynamic can naturally rebalance. The other partner has to step into more of that clarity and grounding and direction and that emotional steadiness. Not permanently, just temporary rebalancing based on what's needed in this season. And that doesn't mean something is wrong. It means the relationship is adapting. Okay? There's another season of survival mode, right? Sometimes where life feels like a lot. Maybe there's lack of sleep. Maybe you have a new baby and both partners are not sleeping because the husband is also getting up at night taking care of the baby. Or stress or financial pressure or too many responsibilities at once. Things coming up with kids at school that are really difficult to move through, that both partners are responsible for. In these moments, both people may feel stretched. There might be less access to softness and playfulness and clear leadership and emotional availability. And polarity can feel less obvious. And that doesn't mean it's gone. It just means the system is prioritizing getting through and surviving, right? In these seasons, what helps most is not trying to force a dynamic, but supporting small moments of connection and honesty about capacity, shared responsibility, and simple forms of regulation and repair. And then as the system settles, polarity naturally begins to come back online. And then there's the rested and connected season, the ideal for everybody, right? When both partners are feeling supported, connected, resourced, emotionally safe, there's more space for polarity to feel playful and natural and expressive and even erotic. So this is where you might notice more openness and more responsiveness and more attraction and more ease in how energy flows between you. And not because anything is being forced, but because there's enough capacity for that dynamic to emerge. Okay, and then there's seasons of growth and transition. Sometimes one partner is growing or changing. Maybe they're doing deeper inner work, or they're going through a shift or just expanding in some way. And the other partner may be in a different place. And this can create a sense of movement or instability in the dynamic. So you might notice shifts in who leads or holds, different needs emerging, or moments of misalignment, and this is often part of the process. The relationship is adjusting to new internal states, right? With communication and patience, this can become a place of deeper connection rather than disconnection. I'm thinking now, like personally, of a time when my husband and I were both going through deep inner child healing emotional work at the same time, right? It's not like you can always choose who's going through that at which time and take turns. These things come up and are ready to be healed when they're ready to be healed. And we were going through like the depth and the density and the darkness of deep stuff at the same time. So it's like that's an example of those moments where you just have to go with the flow, and there is no clear leadership, and it's just whoever is more resourced and has more capacity in the moment is the one who is taking the lead for whatever tasks or relationship stuff in those moments. And this is where that flexibility really comes in. Okay, and then there's also seasons of deep connection, right? There's moments, sometimes brief, sometimes longer, where everything feels more aligned, when there's connection and presence, mutual responsiveness, a sense of flow between you. And these moments can feel deeply intimate and grounded and expansive. And they often arise when both people feel supported internally. There's openness between you. There's enough safety for connection to deepen. These are the moments where polarity feels less like a concept and more like something you're experiencing directly. So when you start to see polarity through this lens, it stops being something you're trying to maintain at all times, and it becomes something you learn to recognize, respond to, and move with. And different seasons will ask for different expressions, and none of those seasons mean something is wrong. They're all part of how a relationship lives and evolves. So now that you understand the seasons of polarity, you can stop comparing your relationship to rigid rules and start asking real living questions. What season are we in right now? What energy is needed? What is my capacity today? What is my partner's capacity today? Where can I bring a little more breath, a little more presence, a little more truth? And now I want to guide you into a closing practice to integrate everything we've explored in your body, in your heart, and in your relationship, right? That was a lot of information. It can be exhausting to take in so much information, and it is so much more integrative and really creates beautiful shifts when we actually experience somatically, viscerally, what all of this is. So I'm going to bring you into this little closing integration practice where we are going to unite your inner masculine and feminine. So wherever you are right now, just let your body find a position that feels even slightly more supportive. Okay, you can sit, lie down, lean back, let your body choose. And when you're ready, just let your eyes gently close or soften. Take a slow breath in through your nose and exhale even slower out through your mouth, letting your body make a sound on that exhale. Let your shoulders soften. Let your jaw unclench. Let your belly release. Release the skin of your forehead. And just feel the weight of your body. Continuing to breathe here. Feel the surface beneath you, holding you without asking anything from you. Feeling that support. You don't have to be anything right now. You don't have to perform anything right now. You can just arrive. Bring your awareness to your back body, your spine, the back of your heart, your back ribs, back of your pelvis. Let your breath gently move into this space and begin to sense, even subtly, a quality behind you. Steadiness, support, presence, a quiet, I've got you. This is your inner masculine, not something you have to create, something that already exists within you. The part of you that holds, stabilizes, grounds, supports. Let yourself lean back into that support by just 1%. Let your body feel you are held. Breathing into that. And if it feels natural, you can say internally, I'm supported. I don't have to do this alone. There is something in me that can hold me. Breathe into those truths, into the back body. And now gently bring your awareness to your front body, your chest, your belly, your throat, your face. Let your breath move into the front of you and notice what's here. Sensation, feeling, emotion, warmth, subtle movement. This is your inner feminine. It's the part of you that feels, that senses, expresses, opens, receives. No need to force anything. Just notice what is here right now. And quietly ask, what do I need to feel supported enough to stay open? No pressure to answer, just listening. Breathing into this front part of your body. And now begin to sense both at the same time. The back body supporting you, the front body feeling and opening. You don't need to make anything happen. Just notice. Support behind, experience in front. Holding and feeling, and let them exist together. You might feel a little more space, a little more steadiness, a little more openness, or you might not feel much at all. Both are okay. And if it feels right, you can let a simple awareness arise. I can be supported and open at the same time. Now just notice your breath again. The inhale and the exhale. The natural movement in your body Nothing forced, nothing exaggerated, just this quiet rhythm. And let that remind you, your system already knows how to move. It already knows how to open, settle, feel, and ground. You don't have to figure it out. You just create enough support for it to happen. Now, if you are in a relationship, I want you to gently bring your partner to mind or the relationship you're in. Or if you're single, bring to mind the relationship or the partner that you are calling in. No pressure here, you're just noticing. No judging, just witnessing. And ask yourself, what season does this feel like right now? No analysis, just the first sense that comes. Trust it. Continuing to breathe here. And then gently ask, what is being asked of me right now? Maybe it's more presence or more honesty, more rest, openness, more structure, more softness, or more boundaries. Let the answer come from your body, not your mind. And now bring one hand to your heart and one hand to your lower belly. Feel your body. Feel your breath. Feel yourself here. And if it feels true, you can let these words land. I am supported. I can feel what's real. I can hold and open. I can move at my own pace. Take one more slow breath in and a gentle breath out. And when you're ready, slowly come back, wiggling your fingers and your toes, opening the eyes. Take a look around the room slowly to orient yourself back to your space and to the present moment, to your body. Thank you for being here in this level of depth, honesty, and embodiment. We didn't just learn about polarity, we really remembered something ancient inside of us. We remembered our own internal masculine. We remembered our own internal feminine. We remembered the dance that makes your soul alive. And we remembered the wisdom of your body, your nervous system, your lineage, your God. My hope is that you leave not with more rules, but with more truth. The truth of who you are, the truth of what love requires, the truth of how God moves through your relationships, the truth of the union that lives inside of you, waiting to be honored, tended, and expressed. Thank you for letting me guide you through this. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening. If this episode resonated with you, the biggest way you can help support this work is by engaging with it. Please make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what's coming next. And please leave us a review and a rating and share it with someone who needs to hear this. Truly, this matters so much more than people realize. When you subscribe, when you leave a review, when you share, that's what allows this podcast to grow. It's what helps it reach the people who are ready for this work but haven't found it yet. So if this spoke to you, please let it move beyond just you. Take a screenshot, share it on your Instagram stories, and tag me at manifest.health.official. I love seeing what's landing for you and being in that connection. And if you feel called, I would love to hear your takeaways. Please send me a DM. Tell me what shifted for you. I read it all and I would love to connect with you. See you next time. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for choosing depth, for choosing growth, for choosing to live awake and embodied in your own life. I'm Tamar Penina, a wife, a mother of 5 beautiful children, and a woman deeply devoted to living in alignment with God, Hashem. I spend my days homeschooling, creating, tending to my home and family, and building work that helps women come back into their bodies and their truth. I'm a somatic energy practitioner and teacher. My work weaves together nervous system science, somatic healing, quantum principles, Kabbalah, and Torah-rooted, God-centered wisdom. I'm the founder of Manifest Health, creator of the Somatic Healing Foundation's membership, the Kabbalah Moon Journal, and the Lagani Method, a body-based healing framework that integrates breath, movement, sound, touch, and embodied awareness to restore alignment and inner strength. If you'd like to go deeper, you can connect with me on Instagram at manifest.health.official or join us inside the membership at naz.io/manifesthealth.